Everybody, let me take my glasses off because I got a lady on the channel today that's going to blow your mind. This is what I do here, Strong Inspirations. I'm a mind blower through the people who come on the channel. I'm an ordinary guy trying to do something extraordinary because I am fortunate enough to find people like this lady here. Ooh, you're going to like this one a lot. I ain't even gonna give you no hints. You know, this thing is gonna flow so smoothly, and she's smooth, sister. And let me tell you what happened. Did I tell you my name is Anthony Brogdon? I forgot to say who I am. I'm excited. And let me tell you what happened is I'm gonna tell you two-part story. One part is I was in Philadelphia and I had a book signing, and I attended a conference of people who found out their ancestors were in the early Americans, let's call it. There's more to that story, and the organization has a name, and we're going to get into that. She was there. Her story was super unique, and I saw her sitting there. I said, "Man, I got to have this lady on my show," and here we are. And then I did contact her like a few days after that. I wasn't gonna give her no time to forget me. I contacted a few days after that, and we had set this up. She called me. She said, "Now we on for the day, right?" I said, "Yeah, I gotta move it back just a tad because I'm jamming here. A lot of things is happening, and I do. I'm so grateful that she decided to and could accommodate me. But here we are. So hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. Hit the like button on this video. You're going to love it. Hit the notifications bell. You get a ding, a shock, your lights flicker that there is new content on Strong Inspirations. And tell somebody about us. Don't keep it to yourself. I really appreciate it when you help share the stories that come on the show. And you're going to like this one. Couple housekeeping. You know I'm a filmmaker, everybody. This is the documentary I did. I toured it to over 40 cities across America. I did not know until I did some research and stumbled that there were rich Black people in the 1800s. See, them schools didn't teach me that, and I just didn't know it. And when I stumbled across it, I did a movie on it. It's streaming on Amazon, and then I wrote a book about it. I really want you to know this stuff. And so here it is in black and white, real easy to read. I add no commentary. Over 200 facts. It's over 30 businesses that were owned by enslaved Black folks who took the money and bought their freedom. They said, "Come on, man, here goes some money. Let me go and let me be on my own and do my thing without you." And many of them agreed to do it. And they're cited in this book. And I'm doing speaking around the country. I just let you know I was in Philadelphia, but I'm on my way to Beaufort, South Carolina. I'm going to knock them out down there in Gullah Geechee country. I'm coming with the two-step on them. I'm doing my thing out of Detroit. Let them know how we handle it up here. And then feel that vibe that they have. And I'm super excited about that. And there are several videos on the show, on the channel from the Gullah Geechee country. That lady who kind of leads it, she's one of the premier Gullah Geechee folks, if I could use that loosely. Her name is Aunt Curly Sue. She pushed, I stay in touch with that. She's got 2-3 videos on here. Watch those. There's a guy named Griffin Lawson, PhD guy, very smart, wrote the paper. They didn't even read it, say, "Come on over." He's on the show. I got people from Charleston and Savannah. One lady, she talks as in the Gullah Geechee area. She says they braided their hair, the enslaved folk, as a way to know the trail, the path to freedom. I said, "What?" She said they were that smart, that cunning to get out of that situation. So watch all that and so much more on the channel. And again, go to businessintheblack.net. That's where you learn about where I'm at. Because I even got my own festival coming up in Mount Bayou, Mississippi. I ain't even been to Mississippi, and I'm coming down there and I'm jamming with the Black Museum down there. And he's got 2 videos on the show. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. It's my favorite word. In my world, strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the lady, the strong sister on the channel today. Come on, introduce yourself. Thank you for being on here with me.
My name is Joyce Mosley, and I've traced my ancestry back to the 1600s here in America. And on both my great-great-grandmother's side and great-great-great-grandfather's side, their fathers are European, their mothers are enslaved to African women. And I wrote a book, children's book, so children know that our history is American history, that we have a right to say that we developed this country, we contributed to this country because I can document it just through my family alone.
All right. Before we gonna get into that, we're gonna plug that book too. I want people to get that book. I gotta ask a couple questions about you personally, if you don't mind. Where were
Okay.
you born and raised?
I was born and raised outside of Philadelphia. I went to college just north of Philadelphia. So I spent most of my time in this area, except for a couple of years when I worked in Washington, D.C.
Were you in the black neighborhood, the white neighborhood of Philadelphia?
I lived outside of Philadelphia, one of the suburban areas, and pretty much it's the it's called the main line of Philadelphia, and pretty much it was small population of African Americans, and they mostly came up from the South to be chauffeurs and cooks and clean people's houses.
Is that neighborhood? Does it have a name to it or something like that? Most people know it for that background.
They know it as the main line, and the families would come up from mostly Virginia and Maryland, and they would be employed and be live-ins as I said, maids and chauffeurs.
Oh, uh, main line is. I'm just guessing. Is that because of it? It was on the route of a train. Is that?
Exactly.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
The train ran from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. So if you lived along that area, um, it was the main line, and wealthy people purchased and lived in their summer homes on the main line in the 1800s, early 1900s.
No, but not in your city. The main line.
Yeah. I live in one of those cities that the train went through, so it qualified it to be called the main line.
uh where did the white people live? What was their city called?
Um, we lived in the same city. We,
Oh,
li-
really?
we lived in the same
And the
city,
name
but
of the city is
different areas of the city. So the name of the city is actually Ardmore, but along the railroad tracks there was Ardmore, Bryn Mawr, Villanova, Haverford, and those cities, um, wealthy people in the 1800s had their summer homes or their second homes along the main line.
so is it more like a resort town or something like that? Maybe we say.
No, no, it's the suburbs of Philadelphia, and it's always been the suburbs. Even when William Penn was selling off land in Philadelphia, he also sold off land in the suburbs, in the townships outside of Philadelphia.
um so you went to an all black high school and that kind of
No,
thing?
no, there were only a few of us that graduated in my class. So it was a small population of African Americans.
Did you what was your thoughts of white people? Did you think they had it better than black people?
Definitely, definitely. I grew up in the 60s, so it was a time where people like me and other people were expressing their dissatisfaction with how African Americans were treated.
Were you an activist? Is there a backstory to that? You were a militant and Black Panther type person or something?
I wasn't a Black Panther, but I definitely was an advocate. And that comes down in my family, a long line of people who were free people, but who worked diligently to be able to help those enslaved all the way through, say, Paul Robeson, who was a cousin of mine.
Oh, did you face any black backlash? I mean threats or anything for speaking up?
Um, Not really. I was in high school and kind of active where I could as a high school student.
Did you know Black history other than your family? We're gonna get to that part, but other
And
Black history.
so, yeah, my grandmother insisted that we learn our history. She was the one that said African Americans contributed to the well-being, the development of this country, and we need to know that. So she encouraged her grandchildren to be activists, and she was. I can remember my grandmother being the first Black school district president. So she was active as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, as a result of that, did you have white friends?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
and I ask this because of this. When I grew up here in Detroit, I didn't have any white friends. I didn't know how to deal with white people. Is Can you be an activist and have white friends and then talk about black issues around them, or that's not the time? How does that
You can have white friends, you can talk about Black issues. I mean, the kids I went to school with were pretty well off, so they were very liberal in their thinking.
go? But then you knew at the end of the day they were well off, and you had to go to your scenario, which wasn't the same as theirs.
Exactly.
And did that make you jealous?
No, it just made me want to improve my status as I grew up.
Did your grandparents work on your ancestors, the immediate with grandparents, parents? Did they work on the railroad in those conditions, or what was the employer for them
No.
at the time?
So my grandfather was a chauffeur for one of the rich families that lived outside of Philadelphia. And my grandmother was a cook. Today she'd be called a personal chef, but she was a cook for people like the president of Haverford College.
Um, did you hear him talk about what it was like being a chauffeur?
Yes, one of the things he disliked was that he was always on call. When they wanted to go someplace, he needed to be ready to drive them.
But he saw some high life too.
Yes, he did.
Could he bring some high life home? And because I got a friend, her mother did that. She worked for a white family, and from what I gathered, they were very nice to her. They gave her stuff. I mean, really good gifts at Christmas time and so on and so forth. Was that some of his scenario?
That was his scenario, as well as my grandmother. She was a cook for rich people. So she would also, while she was cooking, she would send food to us, to my family. So she'd make them homemade applesauce and make us an apple pie, for an example.
Uh, could you equate that in your mind, just in an imaginary way, what slaves might have felt like having to work in the big house or something of that sort?
Yes, I can. In fact, Cyrus Bustle, who was the slave that I validated and became a member of the DAR on, the Daughters of the American Revolution, Cyrus was not freed, not emancipated until he was like 37 years old. So he was enslaved working for white people until he was able to raise enough money to purchase his freedom.
And he is who to you? Who is he?
He is my seventh great grandfather, Cyrus Bustle, who was born 1732, was sold away from his family at the age of 10, made an arrangement to be free. He would work for a rich white Quaker for 7 years, and at the end of the 7 years, he would emancipate him. Once he was emancipated, he opened a bakery in New Jersey where he lived, and he operated a very successful bakery. During the Revolutionary War, he was commissioned to use the flour by the Continental Army to bake bread for George Washington's troops.
Wow. Um, is there something to the dynamic of house black person and field black person? And I'm gonna use that to make it sound better.
Well, certainly they had a very different life. The field person, enslaved person, didn't have the opportunities or the clothes or the food that the people working in the house had. So there was certainly a division of privilege between the two.
Growing up, did your grandmother tell you these stories? How did you learn Black history?
My grandmother knew the oral history from our family. She always knew Cyrus Bustle. She always knew that she was related to Paul Robeson. So she had the oral history, and she asked me to document it so that the family wouldn't lose their history. So I wrote a book called Graham's Gift, enables me to tell the children in my family what she passed on to me. And also I document it so that I was able to verify and validate the oral history that my grandmother passed on.
Is this something in all of your years that you wanted to do? Was Black history your forte, or when she said do it, you had you did it?
When she said that this is what she wanted me to do, then I did it. I've been researching our family history for the last 30 years and always finding new information. And now that a lot of the things are online, it's just easier to find out to validate the history. And as I said, one of the things I've done was to join legacy groups and to join the DAR to validate that what I was saying, what I researched, what I thought was important is.
With that said, when you did the research, and this is an easy question, did you do it on Saturdays? Did you go to or Sundays and go to the library, or did you get books during the week and it was just like a labor of love and you just embellish yourself in it, or you know what I mean? You had other life stuff.
I
How does
did.
somebody do it? Yeah.
I did. Certainly I was raising a son as a single parent, so I had limited time and I had a managerial job, so that took up a lot of my time. But this was something that was important, and the more I got into it, the more I saw exactly how important it is. I mean, on my great great grandmother's side, she was the granddaughter of the first mayor of Philadelphia. Her father and grandfather were European. Her mother was Native American and African. So just to see the where our roots came from was very important to me.
Um, well, did you take a class to know how to do this or just kind of self-taught?
Both. I've taken some classes to understand how to read things like the census or go to where I should go to get birth dates, documented birth dates, death dates, marriage dates. They're all in the archives. Here in Philadelphia, they're in two or three places. So I had to take a class to understand how to find this information in the old city records.
uh how about this? What's I guess ha ha moment for you? Which one did I mean when you first got started, then you said, whoa, and then it went from there, or was it later down the road?
Yes, I mean, when I found out that I was related to the first mayor of Philadelphia, And I could document that. The first mayor of Philadelphia's son had 5 children with a formerly enslaved woman. And they lived together as husband and wife, even though legally they couldn't get married. And he was a Quaker, so they were shamed, but they continued to live together and support their family. And then when he died, he left 198 acres of his land to his wife, concubine, however you want to call her. And she was then, as far as land was concerned, one of the richest women in Pennsylvania, owning that much land.
This is a black woman.
Yes.
Um, uh, let's see. We're gonna stay on this, but I guess the first question that comes in mind: what's blue blood? I've heard of blue blood. What is? Do you know what that means?
Um, the way I've heard it is a privileged class of white people.
But black people who've had the advantage like your family did from various regions, is that a hierarchy in itself?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, although our ancestry, and I can trace back to the 1600s, and and we've got, as I said earlier, African, Native American, and European roots. The individual families, some of them were wealthy and some of them were not, especially back in the 1800s, because they could be picked up off the street and sent into slavery. So they always had to keep a low profile.
Oh, really? Is there a story of trauma in your family, a lynching, if I may ask, anything like that?
I'm saying a story of
Trauma, lynching, or anything like that?
no, no, not that I'm aware of. I mean, my family was New Jersey and Pennsylvania, so I don't have information on family that was any further south than Virginia.
Where is the slave plantation in the family? In
There,
Virginia?
there were really no plantations. I mean, there were small groups of farmers who had one, two, three, four enslaved people to work with them. Or like Cyrus Bustle, he grew up in his father and grandfather's house. His mother was a servant, and because he was the grandchild, although he was treated as an enslaved boy, but he did have some privilege.
To learn how to read and write?
He learned he didn't learn to read and write as a child. He learned to read as an adult when he was successfully running a bakery. He hired a boy to teach them in the mornings how to read and write, and he would practice by candlelight at night.
Okay, let's see this. We don't have a flow chart, but let's go back to the beginning. Do you document where they come in off the boat from Africa?
I don't have the exact boat name yet, but that's one of the things I'm still looking to find because Cyrus was born in the household of his grandfather. So he really
Oh, hold on, let
didn't,
me start. The grandfather's the white guy.
the grandfather and the father are the white guys.
Okay,
They're the
okay.
Europeans.
Yeah, the
They're
European.
Quakers and they are attorneys, a prominent people in New Jersey and Philadelphia.
Okay, because they had relations with the enslaved woman,
Right.
and
So
what was that frowned upon, or that he just really loved her?
I so what I think is that, there were many women, African women, raped by the slave owner or the overseer or some white man near the plantation. My relatives were not on a plantation, but still, the Cyrus Bustle's mother was a teenager a teenage enslaved woman who was assaulted, if you can use that word, by Cyrus Russell's father.
Who he might have been how much older? How many years older was that? Do you know that?
Um, Something like 20, 25 years older than her.
And he was he married?
Yes.
And you said
And
earlier that him and her lived in the house together with the wife,
in the beginning, the wife leaves and goes to Philadelphia.
because she ain't liking this situation, I'm sure.
I'm sure she's not.
Okay, and you jamming. I'm telling you, jamming, and these questions is coming up. How, and I'm trying to put them in order. What's the mistress? Who is the mistress? Is that the wife or the who? Yeah,
So in Cyrus Bustal's wife's case, her name is Elizabeth Moray. Her mother was in this 10-year relationship and had 5 children by Richard Moray, the mayor's son, Humphreys Moray. So the wife moves out because she is, embarrassed and she is being disrespected. And hu- hu- the Richard's so-called wife um, takes her position in the
the black
household.
woman.
Yes,
Oh, really?
yes.
So he had to really love her because his wife left him over this. He couldn't just tell her, "Okay, the black woman, you got to. I'm sending you off," and the white woman say, "All right, one transgression, I give you a pass."
No, I think they had a 10-year relationship. So within that 10 years, I'm sure there was some affection. They had 5 children out of that relationship.
Yeah.
And when he died, he willed her, as I said, 198 acres of his land. So, I mean, there was a connection, a relationship, between them. It wasn't just rape.
Um. Can we say this? And I say this with a smile. She was a good-looking woman and nice and shapely and long hair and all that, or tall and statuesque. You got any idea?
I don't have a picture of her, but part of the land she owns is now a college, and one of the college students drew what they think is a likeness of her, which was a very thin, long-haired woman who had Native American and African and European roots. So,
Yeah. Okay, I can imagine and as a result of the wife, you said they had to keep a low profile. What? Because they had been ashamed of. Didn't want other people know what the relationship was, or how did that go?
I think that's true. I think that he was upstanding in his community. He was a Quaker, and most people think Quakers didn't own people,
Right.
but his family owned, her name was Cremona. His family owned them, and when his father died, he freed all of the enslaved people that were his property, and he began this relationship with Cremona, and she was considered by other Quakers, not really considered, but she was allowed to do the things that a wife would do naturally, take care of the children, um, grocery shop, things like that. That went on to be her responsibility.
Did other than the land, did she live the life of luxury as what he could afford? I'm sure she lived in the big house and would able to go what buy the nicest clothes and that kind of thing, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's not the research I've done at the Quaker schools says that, verifies that they lived together for 10 years. But in terms, Quakers are very plain people. So in terms of getting
I
fancy
got you.
dresses and stuff like that, I don't think she would have done that.
So, but as a result of that, can she be a part of the abolitionist movement like Quakers normally are, or was he a part of the abolitionist movement, or what?
Neither one of them, as far as I know, participated. On the other side, on Cyrus Bustal's side of the family, he and his children and grandchildren were activists. Um, they worked they worked the Underground Railroad. They worked against slavery, and they started and worked for the anti-slavery organization in Philadelphia.
What is the term Quaker? What is that? I know it's a religious, but what
Yeah,
you know?
it's actually called the Society of Friends. They were booted out of Europe and came to America in the 1600s. And they're a people that their worship service is really sitting quietly and meditating. Their way of dress and speech is different than the non-Quakers. So they were, I would say, there was prejudice against the Quakers as well.
But then they could have the normal benefits of being a white and have money and go throughout society like other white people.
Yes, I mean, Benjamin Franklin was a Quaker. William Penn was a Quaker. William Penn established an area called Germantown that friends lived in and were supposed to give up their slaves to live there.
And they give up slavery. And from a religious standpoint, we don't like the mistreatment of black people, or
They
what?
didn't
Yeah.
think that people had the right to purchase and have people as property. So the Quaker society split over slavery, and some of them were well off and contributed. They were educated, so they were able to get privilege within the early country.
Um, so as a result of this, uh, you like this history. You like knowing that this is yeah. How does this make you feel?
I am honored to be a part of the Bustle Moray family. They contributed mightily to the development of this country.
Let me stop you there. What does that mean?
They started Black churches, they started Black schools, they had schools in their home, they had schools in churches. They were part of the Anti-Slavery Society. During yellow fever in Philadelphia, they nursed people back to health or buried them. They were very, very active in their community.
Philadelphia plays a major role in the Underground Railroad movement and for the black community, the growth of the black community. That's
There
correct.
were
That's the question.
somewhere, yeah, there were somewhere more than 20,000 free Africans, people of African descent, living in Philadelphia in the 1800s.
And
And William Still started the Underground Railroad, and a lot of the free Africans enlisted to help their brothers and sisters get to Philadelphia to freedom and then beyond Philadelphia to be safe.
and that's because of the geography of Philadelphia, because it's not it's not a southern town, East Coast, but just below Philadelphia, or how close to Philadelphia is it being a slave state?
So Maryland was a slave state,
Right.
and so was Washington, D.C. New Jersey was one of the early states that freed people of African descent. But the Mason-Dixie line runs, which is between Pennsylvania and Maryland, it runs right close to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I remember driving to DC and saw the sign, and I was shocked. I didn't know that. Because most times when we think about it, we think of it about like Virginia and on down.
Yeah,
Going into North Carolina, South Carolina, and so on and so forth. And then Pennsylvania played a role because it's on the waterway and
that's
had a
right.
lot of shipping.
A lot of ships, and that's a lot of ways, runaways, also called self-emancipators. That's how they got to freedom. They'd get to Philadelphia, and there were people there to help them get further north where they would be safe. Philadelphia had a lot of slave catchers walking the streets, and they would pick up people and send them down south, even though they were free. One of my ancestors um, was stopped on the street, and he could prove he was free, but it didn't matter. Slave catchers earned their money by sending people south, so he was lucky that some Quakers stood up for him. They knew him. They knew he was a part of the Bustle family. They went to the jail and stood up for him that he was a free man, and which prevented him then from being shipped south.
That's a dynamic that I think people don't understand. You can be free. How? And you're more expert than I am. I know you can. Your enslaver can say you're free
Well, you could emancipate yourself by running away.
by running away, right?
You could be an indentured servant, and for 7 years you work for someone, and then at the end of the 7 years they free you, and that's what happened with Cyrus Bustle. You can be born free. If your mother was a free woman, then you were free. So there were many ways to get freedom if you were enslaved, and a lot of people came from Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, and got into Philadelphia or close to Philadelphia, and were able to get assistance by the agents on the Underground Railroad.
And if you were free, did you have to walk around with a card or something like that? Because how could a person say, "Hey, if you found me and I might have been enslaved, I say I'm free"? It wasn't that easy. You had to prove it somehow, right?
Right. People got manumission papers, and those manumission papers you could show then to somebody that walked up to you thinking you were a runaway slave, and you would be free to go because you had the proper proof.
So I bet you if I had them papers, I tattooed them on my chest, so I wasn't losing them papers. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you cited earlier that one of your ancestors bought his freedom.
Yes. He worked for 7 years without getting pay, and he also would bake extra cakes and bread, and he was allowed to sell those to make money. So at the end of 7 years, the agreement time, he was emancipated. And I am actually looking for his manumission papers. Um, the Quakers gave out manumission papers, but the one I'm looking for may be lost in time.
So you've seen some 200-year-old documents, at
I
least digital copies of them or whatever, right?
Right. A lot of them are in universities and museums and libraries. I actually have a copy of two letters that Cyrus Bustle wrote in the 1790s. Um, they're both to his half brother-in-law who owned his mother at the time, owned Cyrus Bustle's mother. She was never free her whole life. She was enslaved. But as she got older and couldn't work, the Cyrus Bustle's brother-in-law was asked to allow him to take care of his mother in her old age. So he did. And he hand wrote a letter that I have a copy of where he was telling the brother-in-law that his mother was sick and if he wanted to see her before she passed away, he ought to come soon. And then the second letter says that his mother has died and he, the brother-in-law, owes Cyrus money for her care, and he was asking about where the money was. So in the 1700s, here's a man who could read, write, operate a business, and be very active in the advancement of people of color.
This is an easy one. When you see the letter, is it in cursive? Did they only write in cursive, or could it just, you know what I mean? And you know,
It's hard, yeah. It's hard to read the letters because they're not they're early English
right.
and the words are early English, so it's hard even to figure out what the word is if you can get the spelling. And they spelled differently, and also there was no punctuation really. So they just kept writing, and if they got to the edge of the paper and they hadn't finished the word, they just finish it on the next line. So they're difficult to read in some cases.
Did that make you cry?
It made, well, part of what it made me was proud that I have an ancestor in the 1700s who could read and write.
Have you ever
And
cried?
pardon me,
Have you ever cried?
if I no, not really. I've been very sad on some occasions.
Um, uh, when you found that letter, uh, if I may ask, and you might remember, how long did it take you to find it? Was it something that you just stumbled across, or you knew to look for it, or whatever, whatever?
No, actually, I was just doing a data search on the internet, just Googling people's names that are in the family, and came across this find a guide who had they had information about Cyrus Bustle, and in that document were these two letters.
That had to like that mess your mind up to see that. Is
It's
that the
my
most unique letters that you've seen from your
it's my
family?
it's my pride possession to have a copy of this letter to be able to get an idea of the humanity of Cyrus Bustle. You know, he was sold away from his mother at 10, and then he grew up separated from his mother. And then when she was sick and old and needed help, he was right there. So I got a great deal of pride after reading those letters.
Um, let's see. Have you ever seen any of the what else have you seen? What else old do you have?
Well, I've got a document that shows when Cyrus Bustle and Elizabeth Moray were married, where they were married. It's part of the church records. So I have a copy of that. I have a copy of 18-page biography of Cyrus Bustle by his granddaughter, Sarah Mapps Douglas. And then my family wrote a lot. So in 1921, one of my cousins wrote in the Negro Journal. It's called The Bustle Family. And so I was able to glean from that a lot more information on what Cyrus's life was like in the 1700s.
Uh, you for all of what you've done, you are like an expert at this now, right?
Well, I know
you're
my
one of the
family history.
foremost people doing this. Is that correct?
Oh no, there are a lot of, especially African Americans right now, who are searching their genealogy. There are a number of women of color that are in the Daughters of the American Revolution because they had an ancestor, either white or black, that fought in the Revolution. And a lot of the black people that fought in the revolution, they were enslaved people who, during the Revolutionary War, fought for their master. So, and they got no benefit out of fighting in the Revolutionary War. In fact, their lives were pretty dramatic and with injuries and and they were they got no compensation.
Okay, for people who don't know, let's go with the timeline. The American Revolutionary War is when
1776,
six or something like that. Yeah, right.
1776 it starts, and 1783 George Washington signed the papers to end the war.
But black people were here 100 years or 50 years before the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, black people were here in the 1750s, 40s, in the 17, so that's almost 200 years
Yeah,
of
yeah.
slavery.
Um, let's see. Um, anything else that what would you like to find? I think you alluded to it, but give me an example.
So I'd love to find Cyrus's manumission papers. I'd love to be able to verify their. I saw some indication that my family, my European side of the family came, one or two of those families came over on the Mayflower, and I'd love to be able to prove that, just to be able to say, they were the beginning families in this country, but they also had children that were of African descent.
Would you like to, or have you met any of the other side of your family, the enslaver side?
I've met, well, they're not, I've met the European side. I have cousins, DNA cousins that I've met, and one of my cousins from the 1800s um was had enough money to have a painter paint wedding pictures of them, of he and his new bride. And those wedding pictures are hanging in the Philadelphia Art Museum on loan from the family.
What's your take on white people becoming wealthy off the backs of black people?
I think it's shameful. I think it's deplorable. And and the fact that they're trying to hide the fact that black people contributed, I think, is a way of destroying our past.
Now, when we talk about them working off the backs of black people, what we're saying is we did the hard work, we did the manual work. Is that for the most part, right?
Exactly. I mean, we built the Capitol. We built a number of things. We were inventors, although whoever owned the person got the credit for the invention. But
Right.
basic stuff like ironing boards, they invented things to make their life easier,
Right.
and then somebody patented it.
Christopher Addicks is he a hero for dying first, or well, should he have said, "Hey, hold on, man, this your country. I'll sit in the back and feed you the bullets or something."
No, I think he's a hero. He was wanted to be a contributor to this country. He didn't want the British coming in, so he fought with the Patriots, and I would say he was a hero.
All right, let me flip the script on that question. Then there were black people who fought for the British in the war, and they said the British told them, "Hey, if we lose," and they sent them up to Nova Scotia.
Right.
You
There were
think they
loyalists.
heroes, or what do you think they are?
I think that the maybe 1,500 loyalists wanted to be free. So they would fight for either side if they were guaranteed freedom.
And loyalists is what they're called.
Right. The Loyalists fought for the British.
Because I interviewed a lady on the show who she's a descendant of that, and she lives in Nova Scotia, Canada.
Yeah. As I said, there were maybe 1,500 people of African descent who fought for the British and who were transported to Canada.
And then there was a lot of movement, not just to Canada, but I mean back down to Jamaica and all that. There was they traveled throughout the world in some respects, even during that time.
They did indeed.
Because it's kind of amazing. You came in on this boat, and then he tells you, "Hey, man, I put you on another boat, but this boat is going to send you somewhere where you can be free." That's a lot to trust a guy.
Yeah. But what's the negative downside? You're free if it works.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the other thing. Almost as we come to a close, one of the things that I say when I speak, that slavery had a whole lot of different dynamics. And your family is one of those different dynamics. That guy who was the enslaver, Quaker, uh, maybe he was not a mean person. And there's a question there somewhere. But then he loved that black woman, had kids with her. Um, even despite, I'm sure how it was frowned upon and everything.
Oh, I'm sure it was, especially since his neighbors were also Quakers. And they had a keen understanding of what it was like to be persecuted. So I would think they may not have been happy that she was a black woman or that he had an affair with her while his wife was still living in the house or they were still married. But if you think about it, there had to be a very mutual, loving, caring relationship between the two of them.
Would you had hope that no, not hope. Could you understand her loving him like that? Because he might have hit her a time. I don't know. Excuse me, I shouldn't say that, and I'll edit that. But he might have been mean to her at some point at the beginning, and then he changed his tune. I don't know. But
Yeah.
could you understand why she might have done that or felt that way for him?
I think she felt like he cared and it was a positive place for her to be.
Right.
So I don't know if they had, it seems like for 10 years they had a caring, loving relationship. But at the end of the 10 years, he legally married a white woman. So
Oh,
at
really?
some point, the relationship was not as positive or caring or loving.
But he never did marry her.
It was illegal. He legally could not marry her, but she lived a life for many years of being the woman of the household.
May I ask this question? He gave her a lot of land. Is the land still in your family?
No, what happened was that the 189 acres of land got divided. She died without a will, and she had married a black man who would have then inherited all of the Moray children's land. And so they went to court. The judge compromised the outcome and said that her husband of African descent could live on the land until he died, and then it was to be sold and the money divided between the her children.
And so that had to be prime property at that point.
Exactly. Today, it's part of a campus for a university. The house that they built on the land still stands today. And
Her and the black guy.
no, her Carmona's who was had the 10-year relationship
Right.
with so She dies, her children take the land to court because at that point she's married to a black guy.
Right.
And then he dies and then the land is sold and the children get a portion of the money. One of the sons built a house that still stands today.
I got you. Do y'all have a big family reunion?
We do. We do. This will be our 75th of just of my grandmother's children and grandchildren. 75th, 5 years we've consecutively had a family reunion.
And and everybody happy to see each other, and y'all have a moment where y'all tell, well, I guess you being the expert, you tell this story so it passed down through the kids.
Yeah, every year in our booklet, we have a family fact and we honor our grandmother and grandfather, and they had 9 children. So we especially honor the memory of the 9 children.
Is this what they call oral history?
It was oral history until I was able to document it, so it's all written down.
Uh,
In fact, my book, Graham's Gift, is the grandmother decides it's time that her grandchildren know their history and know the contributions that their family made to to the nation. So she gathers the children together and she tells them their history. And so the kids ask questions and they're learning. So Graham's Gift was their history.
um, why did you do it as a children's book instead of, I don't know, autobiography or something like that? Why children's book, though, in particular?
Because I want children to know that being our history is American history, and it's history that's not taught in the schools. So I wanted to make sure they had some knowledge of what significant roles we played in the history of this country.
Right. Is that the cover of the book behind you?
Yes, Graham's Gift.
Okay.
Those are my cousin's children. So they came and participated in the photography, and I- it was important to me that the kids in my family know this is their history.
You had so much to cover. Is that a thick book? Is it, one of these kind of books to cover
No,
all of that?
it's a children's book. It's
Yeah, that's what
part
I'm thinking, but
one.
still, yeah,
It's like 36 pages. So adults will read children's books,
yeah.
but children won't necessarily read adult books. So I wanted to make the book readable for children.
Do you at some point will you donate your findings to a museum or a research
Yeah.
center?
Yes. Um, right now, my family history is in the University of Chicago, Howard, University of Pennsylvania, alumni, and a couple alumni chapters, as well as Association for the Advancement of Negro History. So it's many places now. One of the things I was starting to do before the pandemic was to consolidate it into one place, probably Howard.
Hmm. Very unique story, wouldn't you say?
I think so. And I'm happy that my family's a part of it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Um, you proud of yourself?
I feel like my grandmother asked me to do this, and I want to honor her memory.
How much of before she passed did she see of your work?
Not much of it. She's been gone for a while, and my mother's just been gone 2 weeks. So
Oh
I
man, I'm sorry to hear that.
thank you. That's why it's Graham's Gift. The kids called my mother Graham. So it's in honor of my mother.
So she saw it. I mean, she
Yes,
the
she
book's
read
been
it.
out. Yeah,
She
read it.
read it. She was very proud.
Yeah.
And the books won two children's book awards.
Oh, is that right?
So she was proud of that as well.
Oh, yeah. What is there any more publications? Uh, what else
The
you gonna
book,
do with all this? What more research you find?
okay, so this book is on Amazon, and I'm just about finished book two. And book two talk the first book is the Revolutionary War, and then slave free people in Philadelphia, and then their sons and daughters, grandsons, great grandsons, and it pretty much ends with Paul Robeson. The second book talks about the members of my family that enlisted in the United States Colored Troops. There are 15 people that I've found so far. And so the book covers the Civil War period.
Are you a writer? Were you a writer by trade before you started this? And
Not at all. I spent 30 years in human resources. So this was something I did out of love.
man, this is beautiful. Hey, everybody! I told you you're gonna like this. Grandma's gift,
Graham's gift.
Gramps' gift. There you go, everybody. I'm telling you, when she sat there, I saw it in her. You know, she's sitting upright. You sit upright and all that. You because of your background. Does that make you? Did they tell you how to be proper? Is proper one of the things that comes down in the family? You know how? Because sometimes they always say, you know, my great grandfather played an instrument, and it ran through the family. Is there
Yeah.
something like that that you've noticed in yours?
Yeah. Activism, community activism. My all through history, I mean, back to the 1700s, it's caring for your community. It's education. I have a lot of family members that were educators who started schools in their homes in the 1700s, who were teachers, who were one of the founders of some of the colleges and universities. Um, I have one person in the family who was the first person to get a medical degree from University of Pennsylvania, and his brother got a law degree, and the first African Americans. So there is more to the story,
Yeah, sure.
and I'm going to keep writing it.
Man, this is beautiful. Everybody hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. Hit the like button. There is no love button, but I know you loved it. Hit the notifications bell and tell somebody about it. May I ask, do you have a website or something like that?
I do for the book. It's called joycemosley.com.
Okay, there you go. I got to ask you this. Is there a question that I have not asked you? Something you want people to know?
Um, just that if I mean, they may want to do a project with the children in their family to find out where they came from. I mean, it gives you a sense of pride to know that the stuff they're teaching you in school about slavery, we weren't all slaves. We contributed, and even the people that were slaves, they emancipated themselves, they ran away, they made contributions, they invented tools and equipment. So there's a lot that people can be proud of. We just need to know it before people in this administration destroy it.
There you go. That's the final word, everybody. Um, go to her website, Joyce Mosley, mosley.com. Go to my website, businessintheblack.net. Get her book first, then keep a little bit of money and get my book. Come see me where I'm speaking. I'll tell you some of these amazing stories about rich black people. Which your great grandfather, the baker, was a business owner.
Yes.
and he bought his freedom.
Yes.
Is
And
is there a marker where his bakery was or anything like that?
there is his bakery. The building he baked in is still a bakery. From the 1700s, it's still operating as a bakery. And it's in Philadelphia at the corner of 3rd and Arch, right down the street from Betsy Ross' house.
Oh my God. Yeah, I got to go see that. I want to see that. Is there a historical marker there?
Yes, there's a Pennsylvania historical marker in front of the bakery.
In his honor and everything.
Yes, it's got
Did
his
you
name
help put
on
it
it.
there?
It's been there a couple years. Charles Blackson, who was a Philadelphia historian,
Yes.
he raised the money to put blue markers around Philadelphia for Black people.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of them for different members of my family.
Oh, really? More than one? Oh man, she come from royalty. Everybody, can y'all feel? She comes from royalty. That's a beautiful thing. Everybody, that's what we do here. I tell you, we give it to you straight, no chaser, to intoxicate your mind through the people who come on the show. And so, like I say again, go to her website, go to my website. Uh, and to you, my sister, and I say this, and I mean this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, keep researching, keep finding,
Mhm.
keep looking for them documents. This has been your life's mission. Yeah, this is your calling. And then you tell people what you found. And we happy about it. You inspire us to know what
Thank
your
you.
family has done and that you were smart enough to tell the story. Tell all your family members, hey, I'm coming to meet them. I'm crashing the family reunion. Don't tell me where it is. I'll bring me some what y'all eat. I'll bring what you eat. Let me sit at the table for 20 minutes. Thank you so very much. With that, I'll say bye-bye. We out.
Thank you.
Thank you.